Welcome back to the deep dive. We always keep an eye on places like AI Agent Store,
Yeah, always interesting tools popping up there.
definitely. And one that really caught our attention recently is called GPT Researcher. So today we figured we'd dive into that one.
Sounds good. Yeah, the idea is to give listeners a feel for what it actually does, how it might help with digging through all that online info.
Right, cut down on the research time, hopefully.
Exactly. It's all about efficiency, getting you the information you need without wading through endless websites yourself.
Okay, so break it down for us. What's the core thing GPT Researcher does?
Well, it's essentially an autonomous AI agent. Think of it like like a research assistant that works on its own.
Okay,
It goes out onto the web, scrapes information from tons of different sites, filters it, and then pulls it all together into a proper report.
a report. So write something up for you.
Yeah, a detailed report. The goal is to make complex topics, easier to understand by summarizing findings from many places.
Yeah. That sounds potentially really useful.
Yeah.
Who would benefit most from this kind of thing?
Well, it's got pretty broad appeal, actually. Researchers, obviously, data analysts, students doing big projects, journalists looking for background, even business folks doing, say, market analysis, anyone who needs to gather info efficiently, really.
Right, right. If research is a big part of your day.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does it work? What's under the hood, so to speak?
It uses those large language models, similar
Yes.
tech to GPT-4, that kind of thing.
Okay.
First, based on your task, it figures out the key questions it needs to answer. Then it uses these things called crawler agents.
Crawler agents.
Yeah, automated bits of software that go out and grab info. And it uses them to hit over 20 web sources for just one research task.
Wow. Okay. 20 sources per query. That's a lot. Does it just dump all that raw data on you?
No, that's the key part. It doesn't just dump it. It synthesizes it. It takes all that data and pulls it together into a coherent, readable report. And the idea of using so many sources, going wide like that,
Yeah.
is partly to tackle things like misinformation or bias from just one source. You get a more balanced view.
Ah, interesting. So it tries to be more reliable by looking everywhere.
Exactly. And they mention it works in parallel. The agents gather info at the same time, which makes it faster and more stable.
Gotcha. Now, I saw something about 90% autonomy.
Yeah.
What does that mean in practice? Like, how much do I have to do?
That basically means you give it the initial task, right? Tell it what you want researched.
Okay.
And from there, it handles about 90% of the job itself. It generates the specific research questions, sends out those crawlers to 20-plus sites, filters the info, aggregates it, and writes the report.
All on its own.
Pretty much. You kick it off, it does the legwork and the writing. Reports can be pretty substantial, too, like over 2,000 words, often with minimal input beyond that first instruction.
Quite independent. So it checks sources, tries to reduce bias, you mentioned.
Yeah, things like source validation, using multiple sources to balance perspectives, and it apparently has a decent memory, context awareness, they call it, to keep track of the info.
Okay, so can you give me a couple of quick examples? Like, how would someone use this day to day?
Sure. Imagine you're a student starting a thesis. Instead of spending weeks finding papers, you could maybe use this to get a first-pass summary of the current research landscape.
Right, like a starting point.
Exactly. Or a business analyst needs to know the latest trends in a specific market. They could set GPT Researcher loose on financial news sites, blogs, reports.
And get a synthesized report back quickly.
Yeah, potentially saving hours, maybe even days of manual work.
Yeah.
Automating that initial info gathering.
Makes sense. What else stands out about it? Any key features?
Well, being open source is a big one. People like that transparency, the ability to maybe tweak it. It's also flagged as having pretty high popularity, 85%, which suggests users are finding it valuable.
So it's getting used out there.
Seems like it. And relevant across different fields: research, education, journalism, BI. It's quite versatile.
Okay. So wrapping this up then, it sounds like GPT Researcher is a pretty potent tool, an autonomous agent that does deep online research and actually writes up a comprehensive report for you.
Yeah, that's the core of it. It could genuinely change how people approach gathering information, making it much faster and maybe even more thorough in some ways.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How could having an AI that researches for you fit into your workflow? Or even just for personal learning, what new questions could you explore if that part was handled?
Absolutely. It opens up possibilities. What could you ask if you knew an AI could go find and synthesize the answers from across the web?
Definitely food for thought. Well, if listeners want to explore tools like this, AI Agent Store is the place to browse. That's aiagentstore.ai.
Check it out.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.